Okay, so we're here with back with Zamari, who's one half of the Dan Vault, and of course Dan Belcher, who does all those awesome remasters or recordings he puts on YouTube, all the Dan concerts, which is great. And it was very nice of him to also do my Royal Scam concert, the audio for that. So I
Yeah,
really do
absolutely.
appreciate that. They were doing top 10 Walter Becker songs. All the releases from 11 Tracks of Whack and Circus Money, along with the two, I think, international tracks like Medical
Mhm.
Science and then Dark Horse Dub, and then Fall of '92. I think that was also in there.
Yep.
So
Yeah. So before we get started, we are doing just the official stuff, but I just got to throw out the one song that can't be ignored from the unreleased stuff. My God, the all of the unreleased stuff I think is great, but hang on a second. I gotta pull up a couple lyrics here real quick so I
sure.
can give this its due. Love in the fourth lies I can believe kind of thing is just, first of all, I don't understand how he comes up with those ideas, but the one line from it that really just kills me. It's like, maybe our love just needs a vacation. The train is rolling out of the station, and across the platform, another train is pulling in.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go through this without referencing how freaking brilliant of a line that is.
Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of those demos
This
are
is a
honestly,
song that doesn't even end up making an album. Has anything
Right,
better than I could write in my entire life. So just, I had to throw out that pure respect for how freaking good of a lyricist Walter Becker was. But yeah, going on into our actual stuff here. So the top few songs, pretty easy to at least narrow down which ones those would be if the order was difficult. But the bottom half of the list was really hard because it depends on my day, my emotions and feelings at the moment. So I will say right now, this may be swayed by the fact that my last couple of weeks of work have been really stressful. So I've kind of all opted for listening to a little bit more upbeat kind of stuff. So like, I was thinking about This Moody Bastard. It just didn't make the cut, just barely, because it was too dark for right now for me. So I just wanted to give that one a stew a little bit too. But my first one I'm going to go with for number 10 is Three Picture Deal.
Okay.
This is just such a perfectly crafted song. It has the nice balance of, got this beautiful piano intro, comes in kind of soft, and you know, Jim Beer's just kind of easing you into the song. And then he gets into that funky little bit of a reggae groove. And then midway through the song, you've got this just super tight bridge. That like just out of nowhere little like 5-second guitar solo. Then the great baritone sax solo after that. But just that little teeny tiny bridge section with John Harrington doing guitar, I think, on that part. Just like you want, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 more bars of this, but it gives you just that little bit. And that restraint is perfect there because it's setting up just this emotion, and then all of a sudden it's gone and you're back into the great baritone sax solo. Love what Roger Rosenberg did there. And then the reggae aspect. I'm not a huge reggae fan, but I like it. But I love the way it works with the breakdown part where you've got the spring reverb on the drums. How cool is that? And then the end, you've got just, I love what, like, there's, I think Ted Baker's playing the organ on that song, and he's got these great organ runs toward the end of the song. And again, I also got to give props to the choice of instruments on this. They broke out an RMI Roxachord. Like, I think it was made in 1967, something like that. It was like, I think, the very first electronic piano, not electric like a Fender Rhodes, whatever, but actually, just digital kind of thing. So very cool, very retro. I like that.
Okay.
And of course, goes without saying, the lyrics on it, hilarious. Love it.
Yeah, and it's almost like that disco part kind of comes out of nowhere. When I first heard it, I was like, whoa, it's a total change.
And yes, it's like got the little bit of a reggae thing throughout, but then yeah, there's like a definite up down very kind of groove that you would get from disco that balances that out perfectly, where it's not too much of one thing and not too much of another.
Yeah, it's a good closer. It's a good closer. So yeah, I guess Zamar, why don't you go next?
Okay, so for my number 10, I have Bob Is Not Your Uncle Anymore.
Ooh, good choice.
Like Dan was saying about his list, the closer I get to number 1, the more I actually passionately feel that it should be in that spot. Like I would say about 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are kind of just I like them. I'll put them up there. But
But if
one
you
through
ask me
five,
tomorrow,
I
it
feel
might be
really
different. Yeah.
passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Bob's Not Your Uncle Anymore. Great groove. That's mainly the reason I put it there. I couldn't really think of anything to put for number 10 because it's just really hard because they're all like Circus Money. Most of them I feel the same about for the most part. They all have really great grooves and rhythm and stuff. But yeah, this one's great. It's probably my least favorite on the album on Circus Money. The lyrics are I can kind of understand the lyrics, but like I just don't really feel them much. They're just there, I guess. I don't know. And I don't want to say that about Walter because, you know, he's made some really beautiful and poetic songs, but this one is just, I like it. You know, great groove, nothing too stand out from it. It's just smooth and cool. But yeah,
It's
that's
very
really all I
sparse.
have to say about it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a really
Yeah,
neat thing about
really
it, and
is.
it really sets that atmosphere where, with lyrics, I do, you know, I never pretend to understand 100% what they're trying to say with their songs because, you know, it's personal and everybody is going to interpret things a little different. But I definitely get the sense of loss, I guess, in that one, and as things change. And but also, I wanted to mention with that song, it did not make my list, but just barely. I really like it too. But one thing that's as much of it's kind of dark song, it also makes me happy way just because a few years ago I had a boss who was from England, and so he actually would say, and Bob's your uncle, which is just not a very common saying in the US, but it is over there. So anytime I hear Bob's not your uncle, it just reminds me of him saying that. And he was a great boss. I love him to death. Really good guy. So that just makes me happy.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So that's a common phrase over there. Talking about.
Yeah, and you're saying, you know, yeah, it's one of those things where like we're saying, and there you go, is how we would say it maybe in the US.
Okay.
But over there, and so and Bob's your uncle.
Well,
Couldn't tell you where that came from because I'm not up on my British slang on where a lot of those things come from, but that's one I actually had heard like maybe once in my life before this song coming out.
Yeah, it almost made my list. It's very, very close. I think it was one of the first tracks that I actually heard of Circus Money. I love the groove, but yeah, it's just, again, maybe in a week it could be in the list. I don't know, but my number 10, which I made my YouTube channel handle, Hat Too Flat. I think it's one of his funniest songs.
Oh my God.
It's just so kooky, and it's really like the absurdity of the Steely Dan humor just turned up to 11. You know, great lyrics. Our women are slung down low to the ground. They're very good. You probably had one. Just a very Walter song. English is more better. And then when it kind of gets closer to the end, you kind of hear him saying, "Oh, so you live around here?" Like the humor is there. It's so funny. Great drumming by Ben Prowski.
Oh yes.
I'd love to see that drum part because some of it just, I don't want to say it's improv, but it kind of just there's fills and here and there, and it kind of just goes all over. But it's really tight. Really funny and harmonically interesting chorus. It sounds like they're doing kind of the Moo Major thing for part of it. I'm not sure if it's the whole chorus, but it's part of the chorus, which is not surprising, of course. And I think because I know Donald does play on it, is that him doing the keyboard solo?
Honestly, do not know. There's no specific credits on a lot of those different things, so don't know for certain, but it's possible.
Yeah, because it's so funny. It almost sounds like someone who doesn't really know how to play piano, but they're like kind of, and I don't know. It's hilarious, and I could just imagine them cracking up in the solo. So yeah, that one. It actually used to be in my top 5, and then after a while, I listened to a lot more stuff. I was like, oh, maybe I'll push it down a bit, but definitely won't probably ever leave my top 10. Hat Too Flat. Oh, wow. Great song. So
it didn't end up making mine, but it was one of those that was right on the edge. And it's what's funny is when I first got the album and was listening through it the first few times, it took a long time for me to warm up to 11 Tracks of Whack. The very digital feel of having the sequence drum parts and all that. It took me a while to warm up to it. So I gravitated first towards the songs that had the real drums on them. And so I really liked Hat Too Flat at first. And then I was like, this song is kind of weird. I'm having trouble jiving with it. But then that completely flipped to where it's like, oh, this is so weird. I love it.
Yeah.
And that chorus is just beautiful. It's the harmony parts on there I really like in particular.
Mm-hmm. It's a good song. Yep.
All right, so number 9, I'm going to go with Girlfriend.
Okay.
Now, this is one I would love to hear what they had planned on doing this one if they were going to record with the full band in the studio. And it still works really well, though, with the sequence drum parts. I feel like, in particular, this song, even with the fact that those drums sound like terrible. I hate the sound of them, but I love them because they sound so awkward and cold, which I think is great with the song, with the entire beginning word stanza of the song. Those words are like in and of themselves just a poem. Like, forget the entire rest of the song. You don't even need that to have a poem. That's how good the emotion and feeling you get from that are. And I really love the play on words he does with having the TV show titles mixed in as phrases in what he's saying. Very clever. But it's such a cool song. And wow, I was looking at the lyric sheet. A lot of words. It has a long list of words to remember for a song. So yeah, that's in and of itself impressive. You know, you don't get a whole lot of repetition there, but that's also what I like about it, is that it's a song that, you know, you can really just go through a whole journey on it. And then that's not even counting the fact that you've got a very different sounding chorus and then a very different sounding bridge. It's one of those songs that gives me so much, so unique, that I can't help but love it.
It's a good song, really good song. It took me a while to warm up to it, but the payoff is really good. My
number 9, I have Upside Looking Down, also from Circus Money, as my number 10. Great song, great chorus. I love the little like Hawaiian kind of a guitar solo that's on that track. It really, you know, makes me think of the fact that he lived in Hawaii, and I love how he incorporates that into some of his songs and stuff. It's really sweet.
Dean Parks, I believe, on that guitar solo.
And he has like this kind of like bridge chorus thing. It's kind of the bridge, but it sounds like a chorus a little bit with all the background singers coming in, and I think that's really beautiful.
Oh,
I think
that part of the song
up here and stuff. Yeah, they all just sound amazing, and it's weird because Walter doesn't have like oh man, that man can sing. You know, he doesn't have that type of voice, but like it works so perfectly on all his songs, really. But this one especially, I just really like how somber and just sweet the singing is up here. Yeah, it's really beautiful, and I don't know, it's just a great song. I put it at my number 9 because like I said, it's just this bottom half is just really kind of stuff I like, but I'm not like extremely passionate about. But yeah, it's a great track.
My number 9 is one of the outtakes, or not outtakes, it's an international release from Circus Money, Dark Horse Dub. This was next to Bob Is Not Your Uncle. This was one of my favorites when I first heard it, and I was like, why didn't it make the cut? Why did they put it on the international version? Because it's so different, you know. But it's one of the best grooves of any Walter Becker track, and the drum right next to it. And I couldn't find out before, but I know Keith did all the drum parts. I believe I did this one too.
He did, yeah.
Awesome bass part by Walter. I really love the flute licks by Roger Rosenberg. Just kind of just comes in and out. It's this very kind of airy, light quality. It's a good contrast with like the heavy bass part.
The bass is cranked to 11 on that song. It just is punching you in the chest. It's so powerful. And then you got that real high flute, which very 70s, that flute kind of thing. I love that.
And that very kind of sparse guitar part by it's Harrington or Dean Parks. It's kind of here and there. And then in the background it's like the bound. It kind of goes stepwise for a bit. The single notes that they kind of play in the background. It's very nice for the ambiance. And then the chorus is very like exotic sounding. I couldn't like pin what part of the world, like what music it reminded me of. I don't know. It kind of came out of nowhere. And then they had that part where it kind of just breaks down, and they're playing the but that's like so cool. And then they come in, back with the drums and bass. That was just really cool. And that was like right at like 4 minutes 44 seconds. I saw when they do that. So yeah, just a really interesting song overall. And I wrote, it could be either the most cryptic or most straightforward. Basically, the lyrics is, it's like, Chuck Miller was a man, and then he was alone, and then Jimmy Fish was a man. It's like I don't know where it's going, but and I'm not sure if Dark Horse was another reference. I mean, the only other Dark Horse thing I know was with the George Harrison album and song, so I don't know. But it was just it's a great tune. It's a really nice groove. You know, but then again, if it were to be on the album and he still wanted to make 12 songs, I don't know what else I would take off of Circus Money, so it's hard to say, but yeah, I definitely had to put it on the list. So
yeah, I think it's funny that this is even like a song you can associate to Steely Dan, because it's so like out of, you wouldn't expect it from, you know, either member really. But yeah, it really is a great track.
That's one thing I really appreciate about Walter's solo songs. He was very willing to say, okay, I have this sound that's the Steely Dan sound, but then I've got all these other influences. I mean, if you look at the little bits and pieces here and there, he throws in stuff, like you mentioned the Hawaiian kind of thing before, the Tibetan chanting monks that he breaks out on Surf and or Die. You've got, like you can hear in his unreleased stuff, there's like a lot of crazy rhythmic drumming stuff and maybe some like African kind of influences going on. There's just this huge well of stuff for him to draw from for influence, and so he's willing to break out some of that weirder stuff, and I think that's one of the reasons why people may not have instantly warmed up to 11 Tracks of Whack when it came out, because I know that's one of those very polarizing albums, because it isn't a Steely Dan sounding album at all. And Walter was willing to say, you know, I want to do different stuff. I want to put stuff out there that is going to be very personal me. And I really appreciated that he was willing to take that risk.
Yeah, and definitely, you know, unapologetic. Like, this is not a Steely Dan album, or as some of Donald Fagen's albums. Like you can definitely hear it. You can definitely hear it. So the comparison, but
I think it is pretty cool then to be able to go look at what Walter does, what Donald does, and see kind of where their influences do show up when they get together. Because when they join forces and write songs together, you don't hear a lot of, okay, this is definitely Donald, this is definitely Walter, because the combined power, it's more than the sum of the parts. But you still do hear those little things like Donald's solo songs. They're missing some of the bite and the edge that Walter's songs can have in the lyrics department. And Walter's solo songs sometimes are missing some of the really smooth transitions between chords. Sometimes things are a little bit more jarring, and even though he's got these great chord voice things using really complex stuff, so you can't fault him for that. Oh, he doesn't know his music. But if you look at the chords he's using on these things, they're every bit as complex as what's on a Steely Dan record.
Oh yeah.
So it's really neat to see where you get the two halves of the whole sound from, and how they're able to combine to make something even greater than themselves. Going with, I really thought about putting this one higher, but just again, the way it was hitting me at this time, down in the bottom.
Hey,
what a way to kick off the very first song on the very first solo album. It comes in with this very sparse thing, and you have like acoustic guitar, which is really rare for anything that you had heard before on a Steely Dan record. There have been some, but very little, right? So it's kind of coming in at you that, okay, this is gonna be a little different. And then you hear those drums. I don't know if Walter was listening to the Fine Young Cannibals, but that sounds just like the snare kind of thing on She Drives Me Crazy. It's just, it rips your head off. It's so aggressive. That's the first time I heard a song, I was like, what the hell is this? I kind of like it. But just such a groove on that song, because it's really sparse, and yet there's a really busy bass line going on. Walter's playing a ton of notes on the bass guitar on that song, but it's perfect for it. It fills in the space so nicely, gets you feeling that energy, and then just very nice melody, very hummable, catchy tune kind of song. But then those lyrics are, not so bad. and then I just have to throw in one last mention here: the high harmony part that he sings on that "Is it safe to say you got burned today" line. Very cool. Didn't expect to hear Walter hitting those high notes. I love it.
Yeah, very 90s as well.
Very nice.
Okay, so my number 8 Dark Horse Dub. Dark Horse Dub.
Wow. Okay.
Like I was saying, when I was adding to what Ivan said, it's just a great groove, and it's just hilarious that you would never expect that to come out of one of the Steely Dan members. It's just so it's just such a thing on its own.
Like you hear all those jokes about Steely Dan being kind of like Muzak or whatever from people that don't get it. Yeah. But then you hear Walter doing this, like there's nobody going to accuse that of being Muzak.
yeah. But great horn part. It kind of repeats over and over, and I really like it. Same like what Ivan said. I have no idea like what in the hell I'm supposed to be talking about, but I mean, groove is there. The groove is there. Yeah, great track. It reminds me of the Fez a bit because it's largely kind of instrumental for the most part. But I think it still fits into that whole reggae theme of the album. But yeah, great groove. I think it fits pretty nicely at number 8. It's just like a great song to listen to, but it's not like you got to think too much about it. It's just a great pop. But yeah, that's my number 8.
My number 8 is Paging Audrey. I really love the piano part in the beginning and the kind of the chords, structured throughout. I'm not sure if that is Ted Baker or Jim Beard kind of playing it throughout, but it's really nice. Great guitar licks by John Harrington that I originally thought were Walter, because he does a great job, and especially live too. When John's playing like that part on like Godwhacker or whatever, when they do that live, he really has that nice Walter sound. Really, really sweet tenor sax by Chris Potter, with kind of the small intro by John Harrington. Like he'll play a little bit, and then the backup singer will sing, and then sax will start. I think it happens like twice. But it's just and I love when they kind of sustain it, like Paging Audrey, boom, and then kind of just goes into that. Yeah, really, really nice. And Walter's vocals are of course just great throughout. So this is this is just one of those tracks that I definitely had to have.
Those background singers as well.
Oh man,
top 10. Yeah. And he uses them a lot all over Circus Money.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm gonna have to have more to say about that song later. It's spoiler alert, that's way up on my list.
Oh, okay, yeah, good. So now we're at number 7.
Yeah, and so for 7, actually gonna go right after Down at the Bottom. I'm gonna go to the next song, Junkie Girl.
Okay.
Oh man, this is the song I think out of all of them on the record when I very first heard 11 Tracks of Black. It was the one that I really connected with the most, just because it has this atmosphere to it. It's the perfect music for the lyrics, if that makes sense. You've got these just really big open chords I love the guitar sound that they have on those, by the way. But that syncopated feel from that drum groove, so cool. The kick being off time from the hi-hat. Oh, I love that. The chord changes in the bridge section with the guitar solo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's just brilliance right there. Those changes feel like they come out of nowhere when you hear them at first, but then you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Those are actually pretty cool. But then the twist at the end, where like he starts off with he's still got this connection with her, and then talks about how it's a fucked up world. But then at the end, when he starts seeing how she's really deteriorating, and that I'm not going to follow you there, that's another world. That way of conveying what's happening with just one little line change in a song. That it's storytelling in its most perfect condensed form. Love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And even when it says like, you take me to the white side of your China curtain, and just basically saying like, look, you're going somewhere, and I love you, but I can't go there. Like that. Yeah, that was one of the songs that really got me when I first heard that album for the first time. So
kind of reminiscent of Charlie Freak to an extent. With the addiction and stuff, it's really sad too. The music doesn't sound as sad as Charlie Freak, but the lyrical content. But yeah, so my number 7, I have Darkling Down. Another Circus Money, just Circus Money left and right so far. It's another typical kind of reggae groove. Great backing vocals as well throughout the whole album. Of course, Carolyn and whoever the other singers are, I forgot. But yeah, I love
Yeah,
the
every song
transition.
has a little bit different on the back vocals, so I can never remember who did what on that album. I always have to break out the track sheet and look. Oh yeah, that's a big list there. Carolyn Linhart, Kate Markowitz, Cindy Mizell, and Wendy Wagner.
Yeah, I love the transition into the chorus. It's like he's singing the verse and then he overlays his voice again like over it, and that takes the chorus, and it's just really fun. It's just you can hear it where it like overlaps and then just goes into the chorus, and yeah, it's just really groovy. I think all the songs up here have just some really fun choruses, and they're all unique and different. But yeah, it's really great. I think you can just capture me easily with that reggae groove, because this whole album, all the grooves are just fun and just great.
That's a complaint that I see from people that don't like the album. That it's all reggae. Yeah. It's like, what's wrong with that?
It's all reggae.
I mean, he does it well, because it's not that it's every song has the same exact groove going on or whatever. They're all reggae inspired, but there's still all these nuances, and every song has its own vibe going on. Like this one, I was fighting so hard to determine what song to put at the bottom of the list I mentioned earlier. This is one of those that almost made the cut. I was actually listening to the song like 3 times on repeat yesterday. Just love it. And oh my gosh, this one spot in the song I have to mention that I really love is the little transition he does after the first chorus, the doom, 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 descending line. Doesn't show up anywhere else in the song, but it works so well there. Love it.
Yeah, like you said, all the songs are so unique enough to it doesn't bore me or annoy me that they're all really kind of reggae inspired, because they're all just unique enough, and different melodies and whatnot. But yeah, great tune. Like I said, reggae, you could just add some interesting rhythm and harmony to it. But yeah, that's my number 7. Down.
Number 7, down at the bottom. So one of my favorite of his opening tracks of the 2 opening tracks. Was really turned off by the drum machine at first. It took so long to get into, but now it's really grown on me. It has it has its own charm, and a very active bass part. Yeah, super active bass part. Really love it. I love kind of the chords around like the 3.5 minute mark, and they're like super spacious. He's got these typical Steely Dan lyrics about this druggies, trying to kick the habit, but still with him. And the studio chatter and kind of the distant singing in the background that he has, and he also has on like other tracks and like Surf and or Die and whatnot. It's just, that's the kind of stuff you never really got with Steely Dan, before, or with Donald stuff. And it's nice to hear. It's very interesting. And I can imagine him listening back into whatever they recorded that day and be like, oh, I said this at one part and the mic caught it. That's kind of cool. Why don't we add it in the song? And it's just really cool. Yeah, it's a nice kind of like just very chill atmosphere, and it's a good opener, really good opener. And of course, everything you said about it already. So
yeah, so I'm going to go with one that did not end up making 11 tracks of whack, but absolutely should have. Medical Science.
Very nice.
Such a funky tune. Love it. That groove is really, really interesting and dynamic, changes up throughout the song, which is cool. Great use of space. It's got the good sparseness with staccato notes going on, and then like they drop out in the final line before the chorus to really give like some oomph to the arrangement when the chorus kicks in. I love that little trick there. Just great lyrics on that one. Cracks me up in the line. Never known for a pass it on a chance to just say yo. It's so clever. Love that. And then I also had to call out one of my favorite lines. And all the jive asses and the true believers, the bullshit givers and receivers, here today, tomorrow gone, to the triage tent and the great beyond, we're in the angel tangos with the infidel. That is a lot of words. And it's just, they come together though, where they sound cool in just know what he's saying, but also just the sound of the words, the tone of it. It's just very up and down, weaving together. I love the way that line comes out.
It's great. It almost made my top 10. Again, if you were to ask me in a while, maybe it's there, but Yeah, but it's another good one. A very very good one. So almost wish we had a live recording. Actually, no. Why? I wish we had a live recording.
Yeah.
For sure. So, oh, there's two Zamaris. Okay.
Does that mean he gets to go twice?
Why are there two boxes? No, because I left and came back. So yeah, for my number 6, I have "Do You Remember the Name" from Circus Money as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, all the Circus Money grooves are reggae, but they're really unique, and especially with this one, at least when I was writing this, putting together this list, I added that on my notes. I love the echo part, like in his voice. It's really like kind of experimental, where like he says one line and you hear it bouncing around and stuff. I think that's really fun. It has this really like hard groove, like when it goes into the chorus, when he's just like, "Do you remember the name?" and it's just like really bouncy and stuff. And I like I think it's the second verse, like when he starts singing, you can hear the guitar kind of start following him and basically playing the same melody that he's singing and stuff. I think that really adds like to kind of build up the rest of the song. Because in the beginning he's just singing, but then you have the guitar start following in the next verse and stuff. Yeah, I don't think the lyrics are really stand out to me that much, but I think this is really just another one where it's like the groove mainly takes over for me, and just the sound of it, not really the lyrics necessarily. That's how it is with a few of the songs on Circus Money. It's mainly kind of like the groove just takes over for me. But there are some great lyrical moments throughout the album. But yeah, that's my number 6.
I can get that because I'm not the kind of person that's like, I don't listen to lyrics first. I'm more about the feel of the song and how all of the instruments playing together come together and what that makes me feel. That's the most important thing. Lyrics are secondary. Walter is the kind of the exception for me, that because he was such a good lyricist when he was on his game, he could come up with so unique of phrasings that I really noticed those. But otherwise, I'm the kind of person, give me a good groove all day.
That one. Sorry, you go ahead.
For me, as long as the music is good, I'm fine. But if you have some great lyrics, that'll make it tons better. Like
cherry on top.
Lots of Steely Dan's. Yeah, especially with a lot of the Dan songs. That's how I really got into paying attention to lyrics and stuff, because before the Dan, I really just listened to music, and I kind of passively understood lyrics and stuff here and there. But like I mentioned Charlie Freak earlier, but Charlie Freak, once again, that's like one where the music is just, oh my god, just sad and beautiful, but then the lyrics are there too, and they're so just haunting, and they do great at making this kind of imagery in your head, and it just works perfectly together with a lot of Dan songs too.
Yeah, that one guitar part, the "Do you remember the name?" It kind of reminds me of that lick in Godwhacker. The dun, 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 I don't know. It's very interesting. Didn't make my list, but another one that's very close. That one. My number 6, which you did the wonderful cover of, "Downtown Cannon."
Yes.
Great song. Yeah, really good song.
Great.
Really good song. Yeah, I know that was one of my. It might be one of my favorites. Probably my top 3 from Circus Money. One of the best grooves, and the really odd opening. It kind of sounds like distant circus music, which is like perfect. It's really fitting. I love the electric piano keyboard kind of outlines, the licks in the background. Ted Baker. It fits with the lyrics, and it really makes this kind of soulful, kind of sexy atmosphere. Very Walter. That's just like, kind of the softer like side of Walter's, versus something like Selfish Gene or whatever. So really great. And then the entrance of the organ part, like this, Larry Golding said this organ part, really subtle, but really nice entrance. And it's like different from the electric piano, obviously, but it's like subtle enough, but it makes, it's itself known when it kind of comes in. And there's a solo at like kind of like the 3:10 mark, really cool. And then like in the very end, there's kind of this pulsating like wah, wah, wah. I think it's a guitar at the very, like when it's fading out at the end. Really nice touch to the atmosphere. It's It's nice. Yeah, it's a really nice song overall. So definitely had to make it. It was in my top 5 before. It somehow got pushed to number 6, but hey, it's in the top 10. So
Actually, going with one you just mentioned, Self-Esteem.
Nice. Okay.
This song, oh my God, hilarious. The lyrics just kill me on this one. This is one where the lyrics really do stand out a lot because, it's just brilliant. But I actually really like the chord changes going on in this one, like the licks that he does after each line in the first half of the stanzas. So cool, and then throwing in the little bit of guitar work in the second stanza on that part as well. I really appreciate that difference in arrangement there, which that's something that's definitely a trend I've noticed here, right? That those little arrangement choices, they make a good song into a great one in some cases. Just the little things that show up here and there throughout a song to add a little bit of contrast and build energy and, build tension and then a release, stuff like that. And that's something both Donald and Walter are some of the absolute best in the history of music at, I think. This song has got that going on for sure. Also love the willingness that Walter had to go for some irony in that, like, he's got the background singers coming in for the bridge. I think it's Luciana Souza singing on that one, but this beautiful, soft, high voice for saying the word bastard. But for some reason, just every time I hear that makes me smile. That's Walter in a nutshell right there.
Great choice, really great choice. That was actually kind of I guess one of my honorable mentions. I think that's really a funny track. It makes you think of kind of a Dan type of character from one of their songs or something.
Absolutely.
Selfish Gene. But yeah, great track. So yeah, moving on to the top 5. Of course, I probably would get crucified by the community if I didn't add this to my top. Down at the bottom. Light, fun, kind of a feel-good song. It's just perfect to listening, driving around in the summer with the windows down, just bobbing your head with a friend in the car or something. Really catchy chorus and stuff. I think this is without a doubt the hit off of the album. I mean, just judging from the streams on Spotify, it's by far his most popular song, and it's probably one of his most conventional songs as well, kind of commercial songs. But I love the weird kind of sounds, I guess synth sounds come in, they're in the guitar in different parts of the songs. It's just really weird, but I like it as well. It doesn't take away from the song. It just fits perfectly. And then Walter has a great classic kind of guitar solo where he's just fooling around, kind of doing this I guess kind of bluesy kind of thing, but how he normally does live and on all the Dan albums for the most part. He's just kind of fiddling around, just having fun. It's not too grand or epic and serious. It's just fun. It fits perfectly for the song. But yeah, I think this fits perfectly at number 5 for me because it's just a great bop for the most part. So yeah, Down at the Bottom, number 5.
And I have to love the way you describe a song about, addiction and something that's, in theory, a dark subject matter. It's fun. It's that is exactly why it works, though, because if you have, the expected thing of a dark subject matter with a darker sounding song, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, because you lose the impact of that unexpected twist, which is something that Steely Dan songs in particular are really good at. I mean,
I think they
have some really dark shit going on in some of these lyrics with really happy music, and that's brilliant.
I think that's
something that's really unique with them. Just they make music and then they put if they want really dark lyrics to it, and it just works so well and gives you this really unique feeling that you don't get anywhere else. Chart Freak, that's pretty depressing, the music and the lyrics, but something like Dr. Wu, that's really kind of Jesus, really dark song, but the music is so emotional and passionate and fun, and everyone's grandma probably loves that song, but it's really dark at the same time. But go ahead, Ivan.
Well, I was gonna say, I think you and I were talking about before, the Blues Beach is the epitome of that, because Blues Beach is one of their most upbeat songs.
Oh yeah,
And it's the
Yes.
lyrics are so dark.
yeah. Blue
That
Peach is
organ
like
line that's just
unbelievably
straight out of
happy.
the 60s that of like you can't get a more fun sound than it. Do, 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 do.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy. It's crazy.
yeah. So that's good. Well, funny enough, my number five also Selfish Gene.
Oh,
That's and you know and everything basically you said about it, and it kind of reminds me of like a dirtier, grittier kind of slang of ages in a way. I don't know. It's
I get that.
interesting. Yeah, and the intro music, the intro kind of like is definitely a lot more like kind of kooky circus music sounding compared to like Downtown Cannon, which is a lot more kind of subdued. Yes, one of Walter's funniest songs. Vocal performance is great. And the auto tune doesn't bother me too much, but it's kind of all over Circus Money, so it is what it is. But yeah, and I kind of really love like the kind of the half steps in the bass line. It really fits the mood very well. And the guitar looks kind of like a call and response thing, and the vocals,
Mhm.
yeah, it's great as always.
It sounds like the Calliope's like in the beginning, where it's kind of that da 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 da,
Maybe it's
and then
that,
it
yeah,
goes into the song. You know what I'm talking about? That
yeah.
keyboard thing. It's kind of that like circus kind of a keyboard sound, with the pipes and stuff. So
That's what I
that's what I've
thought.
always
Yeah.
thought it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have different versions of the instrument or whatnot, because you look it up on YouTube and you hear other people playing it just straight up. It stands out, very very obviously. But in the song, I guess it might be kind of hidden here and there. I don't know, but I mean those little chordal hits are very it took me time to realize like, oh, these are all kind of like circus type vibes in these songs, which is very interesting with the whole reggae kind of groove. And the line Kundalini now, that's so great, Walter. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what was is that what was the line from Two Against Nature? Was it in Gaslighting Abbey or Dream Runaway, where like something about how the stars are aligning or whatever, or I don't know. I have to look it up, but it's like it's really funny, kind of like making fun of like some kind of spiritual mysticism thing to resemble something else. I don't know. But background vocals, yeah, with Luciana Souza and Kate Markowitz, great. And I love how they sing the lines about like kind of what Selfish Gene wants and like what is to be expected, almost like they're kind of warning they're warning any people about Selfish Gene. I don't know, that's really funny.
But hey, whatever he's doing, it's working because, like he says, many called but few were chosen.
Right. Sometimes I wonder what some of these backup singers would think about these lines and lyrics,
I know, right?
singing them in the studio. But and that's Walter. I don't know. It was really funny. But but yeah, number 5, Selfish Gene.
At this point now, actually, I'm circling back to one that, as Mari mentioned earlier, Upside Looking Down. Oh,
Okay.
beautiful song, beautiful, and the whole vibe that it gives, it's very unique, very spacey, lots of decay from the instruments, and I really love the vibe it has going. It's just an example of where the lyrics matching up with the music does work in this case very well. And those lines we mentioned earlier, they act as like a bridge, but also kind of like a chorus, I guess. Like, oh, the hero in disguise. That whole section, that is just sublime. Oh, that's about as good as it gets right there. Also have to give a big shout out to the drum part on that song. Keith Carlock lays down such a funky, weird kind of groove for that, what you'd expect out of that song, but it's perfect for it. It just gives this really interesting dynamic that it keeps you really engaged with the song.
It's good. It's good.
I can't wait to hear Upside Looking Down shuffle version live. I mean, that's good.
Yeah, and that really sucks. So we really never got to hear any of Circus Money live. I mean, any like kind of outtake or something. I don't think Walter Becker Media has posted that, at least as of yet. Any live versions. I don't think they ever performed.
Never.
Even in a small studio. No. But
I mean, any of the stuff that was on Circus Money already has, a live band. So I guess in a way, at least compared to like with 11 tracks of whack, where if you're hearing those songs live, it's a big difference compared to the studio where it's just like, Walter on bass with a drum machine. And so I guess that at least we can be thankful about that. Like, yeah, that's by the way, a great thing that you can also go back at some point if you get done with this and you want to go check out my channel and go listen to any of the shows from 1994 and hear how different Down in the Bottom and Hard Up Case sound compared to the record. And then go listen to 93 to hear how different Book of Liars and Fall of 92 sound from the record. They are the same song, but they're totally different feelings.
Yeah, no. And sometimes I wonder why he never put Fall of 92 on the record. Maybe it's because of anything political, or maybe like the lyrics are interesting, maybe not as interesting as some of the other ones. That's probably one reason why I didn't.
Yeah, I feel like that one is one where it might have felt like this is a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
The lyrics just like I get what he's trying to do. Like it's a character. It's he's trying to be over the top with it a little bit, but I guess he decided it just didn't quite work as well as he thought it was when he was originally recording it, and maybe not.
Yeah, but at least we have a nice clean recording of it. Studio recording is nice, and a bunch of live recordings. But
for number 4, I have Surf and or Die. My number 4 from 11 Tracks of Whack, of course. It's a really dark and sad song, of course. I'm sure you both know the story as well, with the hang glider or paraglider, whatever, crashing. I mean, just on its own, that's quite gruesome and tragic. But I love how he brought that and put together in this like kind of a poetic way, and really adds to it with the atmosphere of the different chords and stuff, and the monks chanting throughout it. It just really adds this kind of, I don't want to say sinister necessarily, but it's just really dark and like ominous, and really adds to what it must be like to think of a situation like that where you die in such a tragic way. Great lyrics, of course, really kind of a tribute to the guy. And I love how he mentions a bunch of the Hawaiian locations throughout the song. He really loves to add, references to Hawaii in his music. But yeah, it's really good to hear Walt experimenting. This is definitely one of the standout, like, oh man, Walt is like going far beyond, with what he can do with music. But yeah, very kind of like spoken word type of song. Like he just comes in and just goes over the music. It's like not even like he's singing or anything. He just starts kind of talking, similar to what's it called, Slang of Ages. You know what I mean? And I really like that. It really adds to the to kind of the seriousness of it. It's not like he's trying to sing and make it all romantic or romanticize it and whatnot. It's just really just like, this is straight up what happened. And then he just goes into the whole atmosphere of with the different chords and monks chanting and whatnot. But yeah, great atmospheric song. Really standout track on 11 Tracks of Whack for me. But yeah, great track. That's my number 4.
Yeah. I fought really hard trying to get that into my top 10 list. It was in that group that was right there on the edge of making the cut and couldn't do it because it's just so unique. Nothing else ever recorded sounds like that song. It's just it's hard to think of anything else sounding like it. It's just, it is what it is on its own plane of existence, and it's so good. The chords that Adam Rogers does on guitar that are just so powerful and edgy, and like I don't want to say dissonant because they're not, but they've got like ninths going on in there, so you got these upper extensions that add some bite to them. I love it.
What do you think of Adam live? What do you think about him so far from what you've seen?
So I actually haven't gotten to hear much of his playing yet. Any of the bootlegs we've gotten from when he's been touring, I have just not got a chance to really listen to him. So honestly, don't know. I'm keep meaning to get a good chance to really listen to it more because like I've heard it, but there's a difference between hearing something once and actually going back and listening to it again and trying to understand and appreciate everything going on. So I will I will not be able to fully comment, but I love his playing on everything I've heard before. So I'm sure that it's good on their,
Yeah,
their more
Lucky
recent stuff.
Henry, Lucky Henry.
Oh
Man, that's something.
man, he tore that one up. I wanted so bad to put that on the top 10 too.
Yeah, there was
Same,
one
same.
recording that was really too bad. It was someone that filmed them at I think it was at the Hollywood Bowl, and he had the solo during Asia, but I don't know if it was a mixing or whatever, but they had it where John was prominent, and then when Adam goes to play, you can't even hear him, and like.
Mm.
That was the same thing on my show. I couldn't really hear him that well at all. And like there was one moment where I was like, "Oh, Adam's playing," and I was trying to pay attention, but like I don't know. The few concerts I've been to, they haven't really been that great in terms of the sound quality and clearness. But I don't know if that's just like a concert thing or what. But yeah, I was really
Every
trying to
venue
pay
is
attention
different,
to
you
it, but
know.
I couldn't hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my number 4, door number 2. I think this is one of my favorite openers of both albums, but also like just of a lot of the solo work with him and Donald stuff. I mean, door number 2. Like I remember when I first heard it, it was just such a mysterious, just kind of weird piano part, and it really just kind of takes you into the album, almost kind of like. I got a similar kind of vibe that Babylon Sisters did as like opening at a Gaucho. I don't know how to explain it, but kind of the CD piano part and background guitar kind of reminds me of like a detective or something. It's weird. Piano part by Jim Beard helps. It kind of sells the lyrics. Like when Walter's talking about this adventure in a far off land, and Jim just does this like big kind of like ascending line. And then when you get that tenor sax by Chris Potter, it's just like. Yeah, it's definitely I love Down at the Bottom, but I think this is a stronger opener in my opinion to set the whole atmosphere. And it really isn't much of a kind of like that reggae vibe, yet most of the album is. So it's just very interesting that it's the first song. But I mean it's great. Yeah, overall has one of the best kind of atmospheres of really any Walter or Steely Dan song in my opinion. It just is very nice and very weird lyrics. I love when he's like listing things like she needs this and 3 pigs and a date with Elvis, all this stuff. So yeah, door number 2. Definitely, I don't think it will ever leave my top 5. So that was a pretty easy one to put on the list. So yeah.
And that's one of those, if you had asked me like 2 weeks ago, it probably would have been in my top 10. It's just, how your opinions, just for no good reason at all, changed a little bit. I love that song.
Right.
I thought it was interesting to mention the detective thing. I could kind of see like the types of chords they're using in the atmosphere. It's more amped up than you would think would make sense for, but it somehow makes sense in for a noir detective story or something.
More noir.
I could see that working. And then also the detective thing, I think I remember Walter mentioning the Josie bass line where it gets doubled by a guitar part. So that's like a very detective music type of thing. So that would make sense.
And the same with like Don't Take Me Alive, how it's I don't know, it has this kind of like police kind of like Law and Order kind of feel to it. But yeah, this door number 2, great opener, really good.
All the way up now to number 3.
Top 3, wow. Okay,
so this one I'm going to go with Downtown Cannon. You already talked about that one, Ivan, and did a good job of kind of getting into some of the things that I love about it. And so, I mean, it should have been pretty obvious. This is going to be high on my list since, yes, thank you. I felt like it was worth learning on the piano by ear, which, fun fact, this song is actually pitch shifted a little bit. He sped it up a hair. Yeah, it's not actually an 8/4/40 tuning. So I also noticed when I was trying to learn it, I found that out, and it wasn't done to a click track. It actually has some differences in the tempo throughout it, which is awesome. I love that. It gives it such a living, dynamic feeling. And I feel like a good drummer not playing to a click not keeping perfect time is more musical sometimes than just being straight up dunk, dunk, dunk perfectly on a metronome.
Yeah.
And this is an example where it lets the song breathe and ebb and flow. And yeah, the keyboards parts on this are just wonderful because you've got the Rhodes that's doing its own thing, but then Larry Goldings comes in with the organ for those great lines. And so like there's one part in the final stanza where you've got an upward line on the Rhodes and then immediately a downward line from the organ. And it's just that interplay is very, very well done. And just what a song. Those lyrics, they tell a really detailed story in just a few short lines. And the one line that I love more than anything on here is, excuse me, girl, I'm kicking it to the curb. I'm leaving with all I need, but less than I deserve. That one line sums up the entire song, right? It's just perfect, succinct storytelling. And then the other one I also really appreciate. Too bad she don't remember. Too bad I still do.
Yeah.
That's another one. That's an entire story in and of itself right there, right?
Yeah.
For my number 3, I have Hard Up Case from 11 Tracks of Whack. Great groove. Oh my God. That's a fucking phenomenal groove. I love it. Yeah, kind of reminiscent of Steely Dan to an extent. Whereas, because most of the Walter's music, you don't really think too much about Steely Dan in terms of the musical aspect of it. But this one does kind of make you think of Donald probably being included in the making of this song, maybe. But yeah,
well, I know
the narrator's kind of
arrangement, yeah, for 11 Tracks Away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and about the horn arrangement, very poppy. I said it sells the songs of pop tune and reminds me of IGY. So yeah, perfect that Donald, kind of arranged that. But yeah, the horns, it's weird how you just add the horns up there and it just really makes it seem like even more of a like type of pop chorus. But it works perfectly too. I'm not saying it's cheap or anything. It sounds really good and works.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with pop when it's done right.
Yeah. When it's done right. It's done right.
Which is rare.
Yes.
Emphasis on right. Emphasis. Anyways, yeah, I love the lyrics. The narrator is kind of like at least from what I've interpreted, he's kind of like a playboy, just breaking people's hearts. And then this girl gets a new man and he's just all jealous and stuff. But I love the line at the end, like he eventually doesn't really care because he's like, he says, I know you're thinking that the joke's on me, but just take a look at what you're dragging home. And I just found that hilarious.
It's cold-blooded.
Yeah. Well, Walter has a way with the, fast quips and stuff. But yeah, very atmospheric. It sounds very 90s, but it also kind of makes me think of, it's very specific, but it's like a kind of it's like dystopian kind of cyberpunk atmosphere. I don't know. I feel like that's just something like I probably watched something and kind of came up with that. But yeah, that's kind of what it makes me think of. It's really futuristic. Futuristic is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I really like the whole atmosphere. It's unique. Yeah, great tune, great groove. That's probably one of the most standout things on this track is the groove, especially. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that's definitely my number 3. I couldn't imagine putting that any lower. But yeah, great track.
So my number 3 is the Walter Becker song, "Book of Liars." Definitely had to have that in there. So beautiful. I actually heard it on Alive in America first, and I thought, this is weird. I don't think this is in their catalog. Well, why do they put this in? Now I'm so happy they put it in. And I remember that time I was thinking they could have put in Black Friday, something from Katie Live. They could have put in Chain Lightning with Cornelius doing all those turnarounds for all the solos. But no, I'm happy they put in Book of Liars. Live version is great. Repeating bass line and keyboard that never gets old. Bob Shepard sax solo. It's short, very sweet. I love it. And I know Donald does keyboard. I don't know if he does the solo there, but kind of like the flip side of Hat Too Flat. It's very simple. Yeah, I wrote, it could be Donald or John Beasley. Very simple. I remember laughing when I first heard it.
The opening notes where he's just like stabbing on one key like that.
Yeah, it's funny. Kind of like someone who kind of knows how to play piano, but they're playing a solo part. But it has a lot of charm. It does. And yeah, it's just a really sweet song. You know, I'm definitely, yeah. I'm really wish I could have heard when Donald sang it. Well, when they sang it in '93, of course, live. But when Donald sang it in 2017, I know we have some really nice recordings of that, but that must have been so moving. So yeah, great song, great track.
Yeah, man, and just want to wave a candle in the air.
Yeah,
If I was there when Donald sang it, that's
Oh,
so sweet. That's so sad too.
yeah,
like I'm like in a way kind of glad that I wasn't there because it would have been so emotional.
sure,
And
of course.
that might have
Yeah,
been kind of rough in a way.
yeah, yeah. I heard they had pictures of them too, and they had
Mhm.
maybe like a little slideshow and stuff. Yeah, that's really sweet.
And actually gonna just repeat what we talked about, Book of Liars.
Nice.
Yeah, that it is. I think like you called it like the quintessential Walter song, and yeah, I agree on that. It sums up everything that he is as a songwriter. Just what a like it's got this really like sentimental, sad atmosphere going on without being sappy. It's very, very tightly crafted in the music department, especially with that great little groove, which with like the drum machine kind of sound you don't notice as much. But like if you go listen to the Monkey House cover, um, I think Tom Bryden had said when they were first doing that the drums almost made you feel a little seasick because it's such a weird groove in its own way, but it works perfectly, and it's such a really unique sounding groove that it sucks you into the first time you hear the song immediately. And yeah, the lyrics on it are just gorgeous. That they tell a story, and like one stanza something that's a little more just literal, talking about the drunk Santa Claus daddy coming home, and dealing with the kiddos and stuff. But then on the other hand, you have the complete and polar opposite with the last stanza being completely metaphorical, talking about stars imploding, and it's just two completely different ways of telling the same story. And that contrast is something that is very unique. You don't hear many songs willing to go that far in either direction. I love that.
Mhm. It's a good one, really good one.
A quintessential Walter track, might I say. Yeah, great tune. It's not on my top 10 for whatever reason. I don't know. I really like Book of Liars as well, but yeah, I don't know. I just didn't put it on my top 10.
That's interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
And it's just because it's like I call it like the quintessential Walter song. Doesn't necessarily even mean it's like it's not my number one. It's not my favorite pick, but it's the one that like if I want to tell somebody who has never heard a Walter Becker song before, what does he sound like? Book of Liars is the one I would point to because it's got his fingerprints all over the music and the words and the way he delivers the vocals. It's his voice, very underrated. He's not a traditionally good singer, but he is a great singer, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's right along with down at the bottom with just being a Walter song. Like when you think about Walter Becker, those are probably the two songs you think about being his songs. But yeah. So my number 2, I have Junkie Girl from 11 Tracks of Whack as well. I put About Karen Stanley ? Which
that is how I interpret it. Yeah.
Yeah, really sad stuff. I mean, of course, y'all have the whole situation back in the 70s with all that going on. But yeah, the drugs, her using the money, and Walter kind of feeling horrible about it. And there's like a line at the end where she's like supposed to be addicted and having an overdose, and he's like, I'm not trying to go to that world or whatever. He says, I see you waving from a distant shore, and where you're going, I don't dare to follow. And I'm just like, man, like that line always hits me. It's just like, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's such a horrible thing. It really makes me feel bad for him, just all the stuff that he went through. Not just that, but the number of things that happened in his life. Um, and that's why I really just see Walter kind of as the narrator. Just being, them being the partners, and him just he lucked out and was able to kick the addiction and get out of it and reform his life and whatnot. But unfortunately, the addiction got to her and she passed away. But yeah, I put at the end, Walter sees the addiction has consumed her and she has an overdose. Of course, that's what happens, and Walter puts it so poetically. And I think this is probably like my favorite Walter song in terms of the lyrics. It's just so dark but poetic and beautiful and poignant. And yeah, it's just a really great track. I was debating putting this at number 1, to be honest, because it's just such a good song. But yeah, definitely a solid number 2 for me. Close to, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you're frozen there. I don't know. So my number two, which I believe either Dan mentioned before or you mentioned it, Mari, or maybe both of you. I forget. Surf and or Die.
Yeah,
Easily number 2.
Number 6.
Yeah, definitely a surfing song. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, man, this is really 90s, and it's a different kind of 90s than with the drum track on like down at the bottom or something. Ben Prosky, awesome drumming. And these kind of like guitar power chords in the background are great. Really just set the mood. And like you said, it's kind of like spoken word a little bit. And it's interesting that the whole album is like, kind of this just throw away all these tracks of whack, whatever, but all these themes are like some of the most like personal things that I've ever heard. Like straightforward, just very personal from like almost any artist, just putting them right on the album. Some of the lines like, oh, we'll call grandma, we'll let grandma know, and then I'm sure you want to show me those blankets. Just I don't know, just very kind of like lyrics that are like not crazy. They're simple, but they just kind of touch you in a way that
he has a bunch of names in there, names of different people.
And I love the chanting monks in the background. That's such a nice addition. It's really experimental, and I kind of wish that he'd. I'm happy with everything he wrote on that album, Circus Money, but it's an experimental thing that I kind of would have been interested in hearing if he explored maybe some other things like that in other songs. But I mean, for this song, it fits perfectly. It's great. And then Adam Rogers, the guitar part in the end, with the monks kind of singing in the background and Walter kind of like, kind of just like singing, not even words, just kind of like just sounds. Such a beautiful part. Really one of the most beautiful spots of any of the songs on the album, in my opinion. Hypnotic, and it's just really sweet. And it almost sounds kind of like a really well choreographed like jam session. I don't know, it's all very free flowing and it just has a great feel. And then the monks kind of just fading out in the background. It just syncs up perfectly with, Book of Liars, which is I believe in the same key right after. It's just such a great segue. So yeah, Surf and or Die. Really strong song. So now we're at number 1.
So number 1 for me, I went with Paging Audrey.
Okay.
That it is not a Walter Becker song. It is a Steely Dan song that just happened to not have Donald involved. That's the best way I can describe it in terms of the sound of it. The lyrics, completely, totally Walter Becker. That he's the only person that I know that could write something that's poignant as that. It's extremely emotional, so that's why it's definitely not what you would expect from having the sound that sounds like a Steely Dan record. I love everything about it, and other than the fact that it makes me sad every time I hear it. The loss and heartbreak is so clear and obvious in that. It's just a very emotionally draining song. But then you have the beautiful and expertly arranged music to go with it that keeps you from getting sucked down into feeling too sad. It just balances it out in the absolute best way. The chord changes, the melody, everything about it is just perfect.
My number 1, It's funny. The weeks leading up to this whole video we're recording, Ivan has constantly mentioned this tune, and I've just responded with okay because I know he was right. But yeah, Downtown Cannon, my number one. Downtown Cannon for number one. Definitely, I would say my favorite Walter song. I've been listening to Junkie Girl a lot more recently, and that's really been kind of pushing the threshold. But yeah, very sensual groove and lyrics, and really sexy kind of a tone from Walter. As Ivan said, Walter can be silly and goofy, but he can also be like, sexy and sensual and like a python. That's kind of how he changes.
You
back
said
and
it
forth,
first. Especially with you.
Especially with those Walter's raps, in between, in the middle of K19, you can get really sexual in there. But yeah, great music. The lyrics have strong kind of a imagery that you can kind of imagine the whole situation and whatnot, with the wine and making love on the hardwood floor and whatnot. Kind of reminds me of Steely Dan in terms of lyrics. Some Dan songs, just really romantic and whatnot. Yeah, perfect to listen to when you're having like a subpar day, or like, just really feeling kind of sad and stuff. Because there's been a few times where, the day wasn't that great, and I listened to this and it kind of like intertwines with my soul, and I can just feel it and just mellow out. And I really like the organ licks that kind of come here and there. They really fit perfectly, and they add like this kind of a just really nice feel. I think it just goes great with the song. It's not too overbearing or anything. It's just a perfect kind of touch to the song. But yeah, that's my number one. Downtown Cannon, by far my number one Walter song. Maybe Junkie Girl, like I said, would be number one, depending on the day or week. But yeah, Downtown Cannon, number one always.
Yeah, for being a song about lost love, it is definitely surprisingly upbeat. but I think that's why it works so well, and why you get that feeling out of it. Like the one line I called out earlier, leaving with all I need, but less than I deserve. That it is, he's got the heartbreak thing going on, but he does have all he needs. He can forge on with his life and hopefully find new love. So it has an upbeat twist to the heartbreak. So yeah, it makes for a very balanced approach to a song.
And I love the section where it's just one of the, or maybe it's multiple, I don't know, it's just the background vocalist doing the oohs, and that whole section where they're just, I guess, kind of scatting, whatever you want to call it. It's a nice addition to the song, instead of kind of a guitar solo or some other thing. It's real nice.
Yeah, good. Really, really good song choice. My number one, Dan, you mentioned it at the very beginning of the Zoom call. This Moody Bastard, it's my number one, which was not something I expected when I first started listening to 11 Tracks of Whack and stuff way back years ago now. But yeah, I fell in love with that bass part. It's so heavy, and it's almost just like that musical representation of a really deep depression, just that bomb. I mean, then that always it hits me a lot more now than it did before. Just like really getting that feel in there. It's like, man, that's really that's something. And I think the phrase "Moody Bastard" really captures Walter's, his dark humor, his kind of this self-deprecating humor and everything. And the lyrics aren't crazy. I mean, it's just kind of another love-torn guy who's like reminiscing on stuff. But the parallel of like the chorus being like somewhat optimistic, even though he's like calling himself a moody bastard, and then like the backup singer's kind of singing, but then he goes right back into the heavy verse. It's just this cycle back and forth that's like really, yeah, it really hits you. Kind of like someone going back and forth between telling themselves to be okay and then being sad. And it's just like the Bob Shepard, the clarinet, I think it's a clarinet. Yeah, the clarinet solo that kind of comes out of nowhere. When usually you'd have like sax or another kind of horn. That's a nice touch. It's a very nice touch. And I remember playing it for my dad, who was not really like he's big into Steely Dan. Um, uh, Never really looked much into Walter's music. He knows of the Night Fly, of course, but I remember playing it for him, and he used to play clarinet back in the day. And he's like, "Wow, that's really something." And then towards the end, you hear in the background like a lot of these songs have 11 tracks of whack. Walter saying, "That's it." That's just I don't know that it hits you right there. So yeah, it probably won't ever leave my top three. I probably always will be one, maybe two, but yeah, that's a heavy one. Yeah, but it's a great song, and one that I don't really see too many people talking about too much when
Yeah.
people talk about 11 tracks of whack, which I guess is not too much in general, but yeah, it's and it was nice to see that they released the live version from Sam's. I forget what the
Slims.
Slims, yeah.
Mhm.
So that was really nice to see. I'd love to get a full recording of that.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure it exists because I see it on Setlist FM. All the things that they played, Hat Too Flat also, and then Cinder Annie. I believe, yeah.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, that's it. It's a great song.
Three Sisters as well. That's
Three Sisters,
Oh,
yeah.
that song cooks. Love it.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
The
I'm gonna be
guitar solo
honest.
on that live performance of it, that's Walter at his finest. Man, that's such a cool solo.
Amazing track.
And
There
so,
are
by the
a
way,
lot of,
sorry, go ahead, Zamari.
no, you can go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was going to throw out an aside real quick to mention Slims. So Boz Scaggs actually owned Slims, which closed a little while back. So I think it's funny. So today I am wearing our Scott Murray designed
Oh,
Charlie
nice.
Brown sort of Steely Dan shirt, but I have on some Boz Scaggs socks
Oh, you got to show us.
from the most recent album that he did when I got it on
Oh,
vinyl. It came
nice.
with a couple of bonus things. That's a pair of socks in there. So
Yeah, do the sock
That's
shout out.
great
That's cool.
album, by the way.
Super fan. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
I'll be seeing Boz actually just in a few months. I've got tickets to see him and the Doobie Brothers like only a month apart.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's awesome. But yeah, I was just gonna say, there are a lot of Walter's demos that I think are much better than some of his officially released stuff. Three Sisters, for example, that's a really great track.
I'm
For the most
amazed
part,
that one
not-
didn't make it onto an album. That is, yeah.
Only one season too. It's a nice little groove. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of his demos are much better than his official stuff, in my opinion. I don't really love 11 Tracks of Whack a lot. I like it. It's a nice album. But I really haven't listened to it too much.
I think that's the key with that album. When I first heard it, I was very lukewarm on it because it is so different. And it's not what you're used to at all. So when you first hear it, like, I don't know about this. But then after you get in the right mindset, okay, it's pretty good. But then I would listen to it here and there. And then just one day it clicked just like that. It's like, wow, this is really fucking good.
Yeah.
So it might just be that it takes a little while to get in the right mindset to listen to it and have it sink in the right way.
Yeah, and maybe eventually I'll love it.
And you may not.
Hopefully.
That's okay.
Yeah, but hopefully, because I mean, I want to love everything I hear. But we'll see. I know I'm really excited. We're planning to eventually do a Donald ranking. I really have some stuff to bring up for that.
Yes. I wanted to. I mean, hopefully, I guess I don't know when it will be, but it would be nice to do his songs. When the new album comes out, but that could be. I don't know when. So, but yeah.
If it comes out, we
Yes.
assume it is because those are the rumors, but you never know.
Right. But at least an album ranking, or or some songs. I guess we can do with that. Yeah. But so that was. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm and it's not to trash Walter or anything bad. Of course, I mean the best intent behind everything I say, but I'm much more passionate about Donald's music than I am Walter's. So yeah, that's why I say like with half of the Walter list I made, it was just kind of like I like those, and I'll put them up there. But yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Donald's definitely got the more Steely Dan sound. at least up front, and he's got a lot of great stuff. But yeah, they're so different. But I think that's why one thing why they work so well together. Um, and yeah, and I told you this before, Zamari. I always felt like, especially with all the stuff from Walter Becker Media, he had a third album in there. He definitely had a third album in there.
Oh yeah,
even something
so much.
something between 11 tracks of Whack and Circus Money. Like I could, but of course, they were getting ready to do Two Against Nature and everything, and so that'd be a lot of work. But yeah, even some simple ones like what was the one song? Red Guitar, I think, was one of the simple tracks, and then Our Lawn, which is I think my favorite of his next 11, the fourth of his outtakes. And then Couch Riders in the Sky is really funny.
I was surprised that one ended up not making the album because it was very fully fleshed out. It sounded like.
Oh yeah.
Such a cool song and what a brilliant idea for a song too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
and This Is My Building is another favorite of mine, at least. Yeah, a lot of those they really slap.
And Ghosts of Hypnot's Past, that one's wacky.
Yeah. That song is out there. I love it.
Oh yeah.
I would love for that to be on 11 tracks of Whack, or maybe replace one of the tracks with Ghost of Hypnot's Past. I think it's just a really great tune.
It's hard. Yeah, I mean, when I first heard it, like, the track that stands out the most, that of course we assume is not the track of Whack because there are only 11 of them, and this is the 12th one, Little Kavai. As touching as it is, it's like I like the song. I don't want to say I could take it or leave it, but like if it was up to like that versus another really fleshed out demo that they actually recorded, like maybe, but it's a nice song. It kind of reminds me of the Beautiful Boy, of course, John Lennon. But yeah, it's so yeah. Any other closing remarks or anything? I mean, that's the whole ranking.
Yeah, that was a very, very difficult task.
Very difficult. Yeah.
I mean, like if you look at the quality of the songs and kind of put them on a curve, it's going to be your bell curve kind of thing. In one sense, I'm skewing it really high that they're all really good songs. It doesn't have any bad songs, but just the few there at the top, pretty easy to determine which ones those would be. What order, maybe hard, but then the back half of that list is really tough because they had so many songs that were very good, just not quite good enough to make it on the list today. But you ask me tomorrow, and maybe they would.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you said in the beginning. It's your mood. It really is. That kind of shifts some of like the other songs. But all right. Well. All
right.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was good. And
it was nice finally talking to you, Dan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Texted
Likewise.
you a few times on Facebook.
We can't thank you so much for doing all the remasters and with the video too. I mean, they look great. They look really great.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I'm working on trying to redo the 96 Manassas show, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to redo it. The video quality on that one was awful to begin with, really weird colors and lots of distortion, and so my video editing is not that great compared to my audio editing, but I still think I can try to make that one look a little better in addition to sounding nicer. So hopefully I'll have that one done at some point in the near future. But yeah, you see, I've got all these instruments behind me. I have barely played them in the last couple of years because I've been spending like all of my audio time working on these remasters. Because I have too many hobbies. Like I've got a desk over here where I build model cars. I've got a camera over there where I do photography, and just takes up so much time working on these remasters and really fine tuning them, coming back to them over days and days, and weeks and weeks in some cases.
But all right, well, yeah, I'll definitely see you guys around, and I'll let you know when it's gonna be posted. So take care. And,
Sounds good. Y'all have a good one.